Chapter 16. The next day, my mom and I went back to the hospital to see Henry. I only stayed there for a little while before I had my mom drive me to the jail Richard was being held at. Afterwards, my mom went back to the hospital with Henry. She did not worry about me needing a ride back because the jail was close to the hospital, so I could walk back myself. The cops were giving me a hard time letting me see Richard at first, but they eventually let me do so. I had a weird feeling in my gut while I walked through the halls to Richard's cell. My emotions were everywhere. Happy this was over, sad from the loss of loved ones, anger from being betrayed. There was another feeling too, fear. I could not understand why. "He's over here," the guard said to me as he guided me to the cell Richard was in. Richard was leaning against the cell wall with his arms crossed and his head down. As I approached him, he looked up at me with anger in his eyes. I simply shook my head. "I just don't understand you, Richard," I said. "What don't you understand?" Richard replied slowly. "Why? I don't understand why you did all this." Richard stared at me and smiled. "I just did it for fun. A private town is boring. I got tired of the same old stuff. All the happiness, all the smiles, and all the politeness. I thought maybe the ultimate prank would make this town interesting." "Killing is some kind of prank to you?" I raised my voice, trying very hard not to yell. I was holding back tears. Richard seemed to get happier that his words were getting under my skin. "Do you have no heart? You really don't care for human life?" He stared at me while continuing to smirk. "I mean, nobody in the town has done anything wrong. If you didn't like all the good nature of these people, you could have just left. The people you killed did not deserve to die." Richard stopped smiling for a second and dropped his head. It seemed like something I said got to him. He looked to me once again, but this time with an angry look like earlier. "That's just how things are," Richard said as he started walking around in his cell. "Sometimes bad things just happen, and you're just unlucky to have them happen to you. It doesn't matter how good you are. Even if all the other people are bad, you could still have the worst happen to you instead. This had nothing to do with luck, Richard. You chose to kill all those people." "You read the passage about the number 4? It is indeed bad luck. Had they not been around that number, they would be alive. No, they would be alive if you weren't insane. I'm only bringing the death that the world is telling me needs to be done, or to those who disturb my peace. And my work is not done. I can tell you, there will be a lot more death." "I don't think so. You and your partners are locked up." "Are they?" I hesitated to respond. "If it's not Casey and Tyrone, then who are they? Is it Hector?" Richard chuckled. "I don't know why you think a criminal would rat out his comrades. Lucky for you, it doesn't matter in this case. There was nobody else. I did this all by myself. Just me, and me. That's impossible. You don't know what's possible. You don't even really know me." "I guess I don't. I thought you were my friend, but I hate you now. I don't know if you planned this a long time ago, or if you just recently lost your mind, but it doesn't matter. You're going to rot in here regardless." "I won't be rotting in here. But Thomas, you will be rotting in the ground. Rest in peace." I froze from his words. I had no idea what he was talking about. Richard walked closer and repeated himself. "Rest in peace." I kicked one of the bars to the cell in anger, and Richard backed up. "Fucking crazy," I said. As I turned to walk away, my phone suddenly rang. "You might want to answer that," Richard said while smirking. I kicked the bar again and walked around the corner to answer the phone. "Thomas!" Henry said before I got the chance to greet him. Who did you and Hector catch yesterday? He sounded concerned. Richard, I answered. I already told you that. It couldn't have been him. He's here in the hospital. One of the nurses just told me he has been here for a few days. I froze, not knowing what to say. Thomas, Henry called out to get my attention. Are you trying to mess with me? Why would I do that? This is serious. Well, he couldn't have been at the hospital. We definitely caught him yesterday, and I'm here right now. I just talked to him. I froze once again. This time, I also dropped my phone, and my heart sank. The conversation I just had only a moment ago with Richard was fresh in my memory. I remembered everything we said to each other. I remember talking to Richard, but I don't remember seeing his face. In fact, I did not remember the person in the cell having any recognizable face. I dashed back around the corner to look at the cell I thought Richard was in. Whoever was in there before was gone. I looked to the guard who was staring at the cell, shaking. Where did he go? I yelled out. He looked at me, but hesitated to respond. I don't know. He started sweating nervously. What did you do? Me? What are you talking about? I walked away. You were watching the whole time. Now where did he go? I did not know how the man got out of the cell, and I did not know how he got past the guard, but I was starting to panic. The guard set off an alarm and started speaking over his radio. Code Red, a dangerous murderer has escaped from his cell. His name is Richard Skelton, and we need all units looking for him immediately. Stop messing around, I yelled out. I knew he was serious, but I did not want to believe that the killer escaped from his cell. I started quickly walking through the jail to search for whoever was escaping. I had no idea who I was looking for. I examined everyone I walked past, both the cops and criminals. I was hoping to find something to indicate who the killer was, but I did not. I was soon escorted out of the jail for my own safety. The cops had told me not to worry about the situation because they would catch the criminal again. I did not believe them. There was no way they could catch him because they were looking for Richard, and Richard was not the killer. I tried to continue to search for the faceless killer through the city, but it was futile. My mind just ended up failing me. I was having a hard time remembering any face I came across. I started panicking, not knowing what to do. I suddenly heard a familiar voice call out my name. I saw Isabella in her car. She had been in town and pulled over when she saw me walking around. She offered me a ride home. I did not know what else to do, so I accepted the ride. What were you doing out in the city? She asked. I was looking for something, I responded. My voice was still shaky from panicking earlier. I did not want to tell her that the killer was on the loose because I did not want her to panic like I was. I gazed out the window and kept my body facing away from her, hoping that she would not ask me any more questions. She got the hint, but could tell I was not feeling good. She played soothing music and drove a little slower to my house. It actually made me calm down a little bit. Have a good day, Thomas, Isabella said when she dropped me off. I gave a faint smile and waved at her before I walked inside. I wanted to call my mom to let her know I got a ride home, and that's when I realized I left my phone at the jail. I had to use the home phone to call her. After I did, I turned on the TV so that the room was not silent. I tried to get invested in a show to get my mind off of the criminal escaping, off of the Mr. Sketchy story, off of the events that I could not figure out, or just off of anything going on in my life. I eventually started focusing on a TV show, but shortly after, I received a phone call. I did not want to answer it, so I tried my best to ignore it, but after it rang 3 separate times, I decided to check to see who was calling. I thought it might be my mom or Henry, but it was a call from my phone. Someone from the jail must have grabbed it. I answered. I heard Hector speaking on the other end. He must have went to the jail and found my phone, but there was no sense of relief. You might be in danger, Thomas, Hector stated. I immediately started shaking. Why? I barely managed to ask. I think the killer is targeting you next. The jail that Richard was in, whoever it was, left 4x4 on the wall. I think it means 16. Your house is 16. I'm driving there now. If you have traps, I'll be there to catch him. But I'm gonna bring you to be in the hospital with your family. I didn't know how to respond. Are you there? Hector asked after I stayed silent for a few seconds. Yeah, I responded, still barely being able to talk. Do you know who the killer is? This time, Hector hesitated to respond. I think you were right about the killer being the stalker from the old news article. I know I thought there wasn't a real stalker, but now that I can't remember who we actually caught yesterday, I understand the victim's story. Hector paused. I thought he hung up because he took a moment before he spoke again. The mayor also called me, and basically told me that what happened back then most likely had to be done by the same person, because the tactics he used are too unique and advanced for most people to replicate. I honestly didn't completely understand what he was trying to tell me. He said the person responsible for all of this had to do There was a quick bang cutting Hector off before the phone hung up. I tried calling Hector again, but he did not answer. I then tried calling someone else. My mom, Henry, even the mayor. Nobody answered. It seemed that the phone just stopped working. I could feel myself starting to stress out more, but I tried to remain calm. I quickly headed for the door. I did not want to be alone in my house, but right before I walked out, I started feeling drowsy, like at the park. I woke up in my bed, staring at the clock. It was 2 a.m. It felt like looking at my gravestone. What made me even more disturbed was seeing the finger I found at Verona. It was on top of the clock, pointing at me. I wondered where Hector was. He said he was on his way, but it had been 12 hours, and he did not show up. Where was my family? I thought to myself. They should have came home by now. Where was anybody? It seemed like I was abandoned. Seeing something in the corner of my eye made me slowly turn to face the ceiling. Tears fell from my face as I saw Suzanne's dead body hanging above me. Her bottom half was decayed to the point of revealing her skeleton, and there was a stab wound where her heart was. It was beyond torture to witness. Seeing lights out of the corner of my eye made me turn once more to face the window. I saw headlights slowly approaching the house. Once the car was parked, I saw a shadowy man get out of the car. I tried to move, but I couldn't. That's when I realized the room had been filled with the light brown gas. The shadowy man knocked on the door, and it seemed to echo through the house. I felt the temperature drop from a breeze that was let in when the door opened. I closed my eyes and tried to convince myself that this was a bad dream, like I tried to convince myself many times before. It was the only thing that made sense to me. I could not believe such terrible events could happen in Windwasher, a place that was perfect. I could not believe that anyone would want to cause harm to anyone in this town. I started thinking back to every strange thing that happened in the town after seeing that cursed finger in my food. The strange call, the storm, the way people were killed, the mistaken identities, and the killer escaping jail while being watched. I could not think of a way to explain any of it. I heard the man walk up the stairs. My eyes were closed so tightly that I was causing myself pain. Each step sent shivers down my spine and tears in my eyes. I heard him speak to me from the hallway. They were loud whispers. It was as if he spoke directly into my ear. Long time no see, Thomas. Have you figured it out? Any bad luck that occurs, it's all for me to act upon. Every time. Now be gone. I'll see you in the afterlife. Hearing these words stung my ears, as I realized they would be the last words I ever heard. I had no exits, nothing to defend myself with, and no way to move my body. It was just me against the impossible. I felt another draft, this time from my door being opened. I opened my eyes one last time, in hopes that I would wake up to another beautiful day in Windwasher. I hoped to see the blue skies, the fresh green grass, my smiling family, the town I once knew. I only saw Mr. Sketchy.